Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, WordPress or Drupal, or both, a framework for client CMS decisions. Your speakers for today are Drew Gorton, Director of Community and Agency Outreach here at Pantheon, along with our guest speaker, Jean Bernier, Top Monkey Wrencher and CTO at Cheeky Monkey Media. Just a few housekeeping items to go over before we start. Please make sure you submit any questions you have during the presentation in the question window or tweet them at GetPantheon. We will answer as many of the questions as we can during the Q&A portion of today's presentation. Also, this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be made available to everyone next week. I'd now like to turn it over to the team.
All right, thanks, Atusa. Yes, as Atusa mentioned, I'm Drew. I started off as a web developer in the late 90s, and I thought I could do better. I went off to start my own company, and we had lots of great clients and projects, and built a product along the way, and that was acquired by Pantheon. And now that I'm here at Pantheon, I get to do two of my favorite things, which is work with agency partners and our open source communities, cross-pollinating good ideas and best practices amongst all of it. And I happen to think that Pantheon is both a best practice and a good idea. But today we're really here to talk with everyone about Jean's experiences doing both Drupal and WordPress. So Jean, tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Gene, the CTO of Cheeky Monkey Media. I've been a developer and kind of supervisor for a good portion of my professional life, and a geek since 9. At least that's what I'm claiming.
Excellent. All right. So today we're talking through a number of things. So we're going to be looking at the perspective of Cheeky Monkey, the agency that Gene represents, and talking a little bit about their background, because it's important to know the kind of environment that shapes the opinions and insights you'll be hearing, talking about why Drupal and WordPress are both together make your offering stronger, some practical guidance along with challenges that you run into if you're doing both, and some of the benefits of using Pantheon if you're doing these things. And then we hope to have plenty of time for everyone's questions. We think this could have lots and lots of fodder. And so as you have questions along the way today, feel free to add them just as we're going into the questions panel in the webinar. We will be addressing them at the end. We might jump in the middle with things, but we'll be following up with questions at the end for sure. So let's get into it. So, Gene, a lot of what we're talking about here is really shaped by the experiences of Cheeky Monkey. And I think it'd be great to just talk about your background a little bit more, as well as Cheeky Monkey today.
Sure, sounds good, Drew. So I've been into computers since my first 386 back in the day that had that turbo button. Really thought making games was going to be a cool thing to do, which got me into being a developer in the first place. And my career's kind of gone from there. Back in 2002, I graduated from university right when the bubble was bursting. So I had a bit of an off course at the start where it landed me doing tech support for Hewlett-Packard and their custom computers. Looking back on that, that was a great experience actually, because I got to learn how to deal with a wide variety of people and understanding the importance of customer service, which I think I've been able to use going forward to bridge the gaps between customers and developer talk. As I've kind of moved up the ranks, I was a developer for a company that you may have all heard of, Acromedia, and eventually, when I left there, I was their development supervisor. I came and started Cheeky Monkey Media with my co-founder, Rick Bjornison. And we've been kind of growing it and making it something awesome ever since.
All right, and excellent. So let's, go ahead, keep on going. So tell us a little bit about Cheeky Monkey. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to jump into that. So here at Cheeky Monkey, for us, we've really kind of found our sweet spot being working with nonprofits, smaller universities, and kind of those mid-sized businesses that are transitioning from the old guard to the new guard. For us, we really feel that we can bring some unique techniques to the table, because we don't really specialize in any one niche. We've worked on a wide variety of projects from everything. So when we talk about are there ideal projects, we look for more ideal customers and relationships. And that's really served us well as we've grown from 2 guys in our basements to over 20 people all over Canada, plus a handful of contractors.
Awesome. And then can you tell us a little bit about like the clients and like the kinds of people that you're looking to work with and the projects that are like a great fit?
Yeah. Again, for us, where we seem to shine is the nonprofits and kind of those medium-sized businesses and universities. We're looking for people that want to get a bit of return on their investment and definitely aren't the one and dones. We've got a very healthy client portfolio that we've been able to sustain and grow and continue doing work for a large majority of our clients month over month. And that really for us is all about where long-term relationships come into play and why we're here today talking about having more tools in our tool chest.
Awesome. All right, great. So let's just talk a little bit about the experience of the path that got you to the point of being able to talk about WordPress and Drupal, and just sort of like that how that went back and forth.
Yeah, so when we started the company, we were actually a WordPress company to start off with. That's what Rick's core was. I was a Drupal backend developer, but I got dragged into WordPress kicking and screaming many years ago, and as our client base kind of grew and what we were looking for, we started to bring in more Drupal. We started doing some work for bigger agencies, so we were kind of the mercenaries for hire, which kind of started pushing us more and more as a company into Drupal because we were good at it, and it allowed us to make some money when it was just the two of us back in the day. And as we got going more into it, WordPress kind of fell off the radar because we were doing a lot bigger projects, and it just kind of became that thing. And then at some point we kind of realized that we've got this amazing multi-tool sledgehammer in our tool belt, and we kept having to say no to these customers that we thought could have been really great customers for our long-term approach that we take, but they didn't have quote-unquote Drupal budget. So with that, we welcomed WordPress back into the fold so we could stop saying no for us, so we could start to focus on the interesting projects and the interesting clients again, and not saying no to people that may be coming to the boat with a smaller initial build.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point, and the one that resonates with me as well, and like many other folks that I talk to, that the technologies, as an agency, if you're differentiating yourself on the basis of like, we know how to do WordPress really well, or we know how to do Drupal really well, like that's minimizing your value proposition. That you have much more to offer the clients you work with than just the technology, and I love that this sort of like part of the shift for you is saying, wait, technology first isn't where we should be. We should be trying to solve problems, and we know that these two great tools can solve different and similar problems, and offering both really gives us more possibilities.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's opened up a lot of doors for us and for our clients, and kind of allows us to really, probably hammer on this a time or two again, is the, being strategists and being problem solvers is paramount to the technology that you use.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it then. Let's talk about Drupal and WordPress. So obviously we're kind of talking about some differences here, and we all kind of maybe develop different mental models for how these things are different and similar. It's quite likely that we got a number of people in the audience who are more familiar with one system than the other. What are the mental models that you use at Cheeky Monkey, either internally or talking with clients, when you're sort of thinking about the differences between WordPress and Drupal?
The differences. For us, we've had a great metaphor that's been going on back and forth for a long time when we try to explain the differences. For us, we look at WordPress as a transformer. Now, a transformer can be a car, or it can be a robot. You can put a sword into that robot's hand or a jetpack on its back, but it's always going to be a car or a robot. And what you're getting is that finished product. It's, everything is just complete. It just kind of stacks on. Now, the flip side for us is that Drupal, we've always kind of viewed Drupal as Lego. When you open up your box of Drupal. You've just got a bunch of blocks that you got to put together. Now we could take all those blocks and we can build you an amazing castle. We could build you a pirate ship. We can make you a car. There's so many, it's almost the options are endless, but you don't get that finished product like you would, out of the box with a transformer, quote unquote.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we also got this comparison between homes, which you made as we were kind of preparing for all of this. And I really like that too. You want to just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so another example that we've been working with our clients as well lately is comparing it to WordPress and Drupal to modular and custom homes. Modular homes, you can walk through and you can pick all the things that you want, and somebody's going to go put that together and bring it to your pad and put it up, and you've got a home in a short period of time. Now that home's you've got certain options to pick, but not as much custom. You're not going to be able to customize it like you could if you started completely from scratch. Where Drupal is that custom home, you've got to hire the architect. You're going to hire, the landscaper. You got to make sure you get all your trades in there to get everything done. It goes right down to finishing the floorboards. All those things are choices that you got to make along the way, and that's for us how we try to compare and contrast Drupal and WordPress to, not just to ourselves, but to our customers too.
Excellent. All right. Well, so that sort of like hints at why you feel that Drupal and WordPress makes you stronger as an agency. But let's be explicit about that. So let's talk about what. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. So like I was saying kind of in my intro, is that we really wanted to stop saying no to clients that looked great. Just because since we started the company, we've never really been a one and done kind of project. We like to work with clients that are going to have a long-term relationship with. We've got clients that we still have from when we started the company that do work with us every month, and we're so very proud and honored to be able to maintain that kind of relationship. For us, being able to bring WordPress and Drupal in-house allows us to go out and do what we do best, which is create more of these great relationships, and just to kind of maintain those and continue helping people find value and getting some return on their investment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that kind of came up as we were, again, talking and kind of comparing notes and getting, brainstorming about this, was the amount of recurring revenue that you get from clients year over year. And is that something
Right.
you'd be comfortable sort of sharing? I mean, just in ballpark numbers that you sort of shared with me quietly, but I was really impressed.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to share that. Percentage-wise, it's around 70 to 75% of all of our work is from our existing customers. And that's just how and we're very happy about that. That makes our life a whole lot easier and allows us to be a little bit more kind of picky about the new projects that we take on as well, so that we're getting the right fit and not just getting something in the door for the sake of getting something in the door.
Yeah, and I think that's like such a virtuous circle. I mean, I think it's amazing to be able to go into a new year and say we're, as long as we keep doing what, we sort of don't screw things up.
Yeah.
We have 75% of our income goals, and that pays for our staff and all the things you want to do. But then I think also just one thing that you mentioned there was the ability to say no to the clients that aren't going to be quite as good, and then that just leads to more long-term retention. This is mutually reinforcing circle of positivity. That's a really fancy phrase, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a really great place for us to be, and and for us, it's great for us to say, hey, we're not the right fit for you as well, and pass the names on to other shops that we think would be a better fit for them. And it's not always because of money. It's just that maybe we're not going to be able to service their needs to where they need, or they are just looking for the one and done.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, finding so often that right fit is it's always, all relationships need to work on both ends, and be able to recognize that, I think, is just a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit.
Sorry.
Okay, right. Well, let's talk a little bit about it's again quite plausible that many folks in the audience are more familiar than with one of these systems than the other, and certainly people as they've come into Cheeky Monkey have I had a background doing either WordPress or Drupal, but you need to cross-train them, right? Because these teams have to be able to work on projects that are not what they came in sort of natively, quote unquote, understanding. And so for the folks in the audience who are similarly more familiar with Drupal or WordPress, can you talk a little bit about some of those differences? Let's start with WordPress for Drupal people. How do you explain WordPress to folks who are coming from a Drupal background?
Yeah. First off, I've got some really bad news. There's no views in WordPress. Now, there may be some plugin that I've never heard of, but out of the box, like we've got in Drupal, that doesn't exist. You got to do a lot of writing it by hand, your queries and things like that. So that can sometimes be a bit of a mental hurdle for a Drupal developer to jump over. I know it was for me, and when I started working with WordPress. As well, be prepared to pay for premium plugins, as most of the good ones are quote-unquote freemium. We from the Drupal side, we don't have to pay for modules, right? Well, not with our hard-earned money at least, but it's a very different ecosystem in WordPress, and it's just one that you kind of have to accept that it's different and it's there for a reason. Again, looking more from a coding standpoint, how you override things in modules in Drupal is much different than in plugins. It's defaultly easier in Drupal thanks to all of our hooks and everything else that we've got. Plugins in WordPress don't necessarily know about one another or play together. And same thing with having to override core. You got to get a little bit dirtier and kind of be all right with that. That's how sometimes things just have to get done in WordPress compared to Drupal. I know we've all heard that WordPress has a much nicer user interface for most things and is a little bit more polished out of the box. I think before you get it too loaded up with plugins and stuff, it very much is. Clients will understand it easier. They like being able just to include images in their content out of the box and all this stuff. As well, you got to be realizing the plugins world. Sometimes the plugins work as advertised, just like our modules do, and sometimes they do not. And can be a little bit tougher again when you're getting into that side of things to go in and hack it and make it better. And I think the biggest thing is that WordPress does suffer from a higher risk of exploits just due to its wild popularity. It's used by a large amount of sites out there, and it gets targeted quite often. So you have to be prepared to handle that and work through that in a way that not always is available or an issue in Drupal.
Yeah. One of the things actually that, these are all good points. One of the things that you mentioned really sort of resonated with me was when you just mentioned plugins, you pay. We don't pay for those in Drupal, at least not with our hard-earned money, and that's so true. Like there's a different ecosystem in WordPress, and as I personally came from more of a Drupal space and have really enjoyed, making my way into WordPress, and I think it's just another amazing community with a lot of great people and just great work going on. That's one of the differences. That's there are many similarities. Like it feels like I know people and I know companies in both communities that feel like doppelgangers almost. Like, oh, you remind me so much of this other person in this other community. I feel like that's happened many times.
Yeah.
Again, just wonderful. A lot of vibrancy and smartness and goodness in both. But that difference between plugins and modules and being paid and not is one that is just a difference, right? And I think that offers a lot of, it's definitely something to be aware of, but it also offers a lot of opportunities. It's one thing that the Drupal agencies have struggled with is like how to launch products in the Drupal space. And it's tricky. A lot of folks have tried it. Whereas WordPress has proven to have just like this wonderful marketplace of people doing it very successfully. And there are a lot of great success examples there. And as somebody who developed a product and happened to be doing it in Drupal, and made it through that gauntlet, I see so many more successes in the WordPress space, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Drupal for WordPress people.
Sure. Well, WordPress people, welcome to Views. Views is basically a query builder that has a great UI that allows you just to more or less do a few clicks instead of writing a complex SQL all on your own. It makes your life a whole lot easier when you're trying to list out any type of content, be it nodes, be it taxonomy, users, or any kind of entity in between. For us, what you're going to have to get used to, though, as a WordPress developer coming into Drupal, is what I kind of touched on before, is that when you install a module, that's just the beginning. Now you got to think about how do you make it work, how are you going to make it look, how are you going to integrate it with the rest of the system. Do you need to go off and get a couple more contribs to pull in and glue them together to actually get your final solution out there? So when you're working with Drupal, you've got to do a lot of that, that polish work to install it and customize it. For us, we look at Drupal as being a little bit more scalable, just due to the nature of how the nodes and the content types and views and everything work, and a whole lot other more complex pieces that are in behind Drupal. As well, one thing you're going to probably really enjoy in Drupal is that there's a great separation between markup and PHP code. Not everything's just getting tossed into a single template file anymore. You've got a lot. The separation is going to hopefully make your life a whole lot easier. Again, I was talking about how as a Drupal developer, you don't have the hooks in WordPress. Well, in Drupal, we do. We can hook into all kinds of spots into core and change even the functionality of the way that core is working through our contrib modules without breaking and wrecking Drupal potentially, or causing more exploits to happen. So that's really a big win. And like I say, kind of Drupal just gives you that more flexibility. If you need to go build that Lego castle, you can. You can do pretty much anything with it. You just have to be prepared to manage that in your time. I think one thing that I've heard from our WordPress developers a lot, though, is due to the community itself in Drupal being by and large consisting of very experienced developers, documentation isn't often as available or much briefer than it is from their WordPress comparisons. A lot of it, they feel a lot of it is assumed that everybody kind of understands the Drupal coding practices and are already kind of worked into it. That was kind of when I asked this question to everybody, that was the big thing that came back from our WordPress guys.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually haven't heard that particular thing before, but I can see that as being true. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get practical here. So, projects come in. You choose WordPress or Drupal, and you sort of like there's a process that goes there. But I think it's maybe useful to just take a step back and just check. Can we tell a WordPress site from a Drupal site? And we're gonna go ahead and this is gonna call this the audience participation portion of the webinar. If everybody could just go ahead and we're gonna look at a couple sites, and this is the challenge. Type in whether you think this is WordPress or Drupal. Let's go ahead and we've got the first one on the screen here. Thank you, Tusa. Yeah, so we're looking at a site. Is this WordPress or Drupal? Who wants to boldly start venturing out? Your guess. Again, we're looking for the chat in the webinar. Anybody? All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what this actually is. So, Gene, can you tell us?
Yeah. So this one is a WordPress site. We helped out. It's Hitched by Jolie. She does wedding planning and photography here up in Canada, and she needed a real simple solution to be able to provide a great looking portfolio as she was kind of rebranding and bringing her social media stuff up to base. She needed a place to call home.
Cool. All right. Well, let's take a look at the next one. So here we are. We're looking at yet another site. WordPress Drupal. Go ahead, folks. If you're having trouble finding the chat icon or the chat dialog, you can throw into the questions. It'll all work. So go ahead, throw in your thoughts. WordPress or Drupal, and then let's do the grand reveal. This one happens to be. There we go, Drupal. So Gene, what do we got here?
So this is our corporate site. This is actually a Drupal 8 site that we've recently launched this year. For us, we needed the flexibility that Drupal brought in to connect with our marketing plugins and everything else that we've got going on this site. So yeah, Drupal 8 was what we used for our main corporate site.
All right, and we've got 2 more to go. Let's take a look at the next one. All right, so again, looking for feedback from folks, WordPress or Drupal. And what's the answer?
So this one is a WordPress site. When we brought WordPress back into the fold, we wanted to put together a quick kind of portfolio piece and kind of a brochure site so that we could help educate people on why we use WordPress over Drupal. And yes, it's ironic that we're advertising the DrupalCon LA designs on a WordPress site, so that's kind of a bit of a funny for us.
Yeah, there's not many WordPress sites in the world that probably mention DrupalCon Los Angeles. That's the Venn diagram covering that is probably quite small. All right, and 1 to go. What do we have here? Let's show it and let's take a look. Again, guessing WordPress or Drupal, and the answer is.
So this one's a Drupal site for a client called UniWorld. Their main business is about collecting company records all over the world. We use Drupal to integrate a whole bunch of kind of business workflow for them. We collapsed a bunch of Access databases and created one system that they could use to manage pretty much their whole kind of workflow and their employees with. So Drupal was the right fit for them. Cool.
So all right, obviously that was a little bit contrived. I think, all of us as web professionals, probably, sort of, this had a little bit of a smell of like, hey, well, of course you can't tell. But I think that's the point, right? So the 99% of the world who's visiting the sites, using the sites, administering the sites, they don't care. And yes, it's our duty to do the right thing for our clients, but maybe we ought to be a little less, a little less one-minded in the systems that we use. Gene, anything to add to that?
Yeah. Again, for us, this really comes down to wanting to be that strategist and trying to find people, trying to find solutions for people. At the end of the day, our customers really don't care what platform we build our projects on, as long as they work and they get them the results that they've been promised. It could be WordPress, it could be Drupal, it could be something else. And just having more of those tools in our toolbox allows us to be a whole lot more flexible and really focusing on how do we find, become those Sherlock to find the problems that they've got, and then crafting amazing solutions for them. Because sometimes it's not always going to be a web project. Maybe it's going to be a social media campaign. Maybe it's going to be, some design work. We have to be ready and flexible. And like I said, 99% of the world just doesn't care what we build that site on, as long as it works and as long as it's secure.
Cool. All right. Well, let's take a look at practical guidance, and let's real specifically, let's talk about WordPress or Drupal, the question. So it still happens, right? So I'm sure you get people coming to you and saying, hey, Gene, Cheeky Monkey, we'd really like a WordPress site to do this, or we'd really like a Drupal site to do this. How do you feel about that?
We actually respond with, you're asking the wrong question. If people come to us and saying, hey, should I make this site on Drupal or WordPress? We stop them and we start asking them about, what are they trying to accomplish? And hopefully, our end goal is to get people to start thinking about better questions. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. And he's constantly telling everybody, ask better questions if you want a better life. And I really feel that's tenfold for our industry. I think we've got to really be in the business of asking better questions so that we can get people, saying, hey, here are my problems. What should I do with it? Or sometimes people don't even know what their problems really are. And how do we help go through that process of kind of digging in with them and finding out what that is so that they can actually measure what a return on their investment will look like. Because at the end of the day, some of these people are paying large sums of money to be able to get these projects done. And you want to make sure that they feel that that was a worthwhile investment on their part.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's talk about it. I mean, at some point you have these kinds of conversations. You go through their goals. They're, figuring out what it is that needs solving, and then internally you have to go through and say, all right, we know a lot of stuff about this project. Can you tell us about some of the hallmarks for choosing between WordPress or Drupal, as you use internally when you're kind of figuring out which tool to invoke?
Yeah, for us, these are the ones that we kind of run to quickly for a quick kind of smoke test once we've gotten, like you say, some of those questions answered. We look at, do they have a lower budget? Is the solution that they really need to get their problem solved, is it readily available within the community? Is it something we can spin up really fast for them with WordPress? If somebody's coming in and they're looking for more like that blog type project, of course we're going to go with WordPress. That's its bread and butter. It would be overkill, I think, just to use Drupal for that. For us, when we're looking at things, is it just a simple amount of content type or a simple content? We'll run to WordPress. When there aren't when there isn't a lot of relationships between different content types and things like that, and all that stuff, that there's no complicated amounts of views and stuff that need to be put out. For us, then that's when we'd probably lean more to using WordPress. On the flip side, then we've got Drupal. Drupal's going to come in, and if we've got complicated data relationships, we're going to use Drupal. When we're integrating multiple sources of content, be it through feeds and everything else, APIs, that's a great time to think about Drupal. When the views that we're outputting are really complicated and would potentially be hard to query by hand, again, we can use the power of views. And for us, when we've got a large number of content or users that are going to have these unique workflows or complicated business workflows that need to be solved, we find that a whole lot easier to kind of manage and model in Drupal.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note that these are all kind of like signals, not rules. I certainly, I've had this question come to me from agencies, and I've heard other people kind of give opinions on this, and I think this is, in line with the things I've heard from other folks as well, and have often said myself as well. But I think one of the things to really emphasize here is that these are indicators, not again, like, if it's not that you can't build a complicated data relationship in WordPress, or that you can't build a quick little site in Drupal. It's that those tools sort of are predisposed in certain directions, and like as you get better and better at doing both of these things, you'll get a finer understanding for the options here.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, there's going to be some challenges of doing both that you've run into, and one of them is going to be cross-training a team. So you can't, you've got a team of about 20 people doing interesting work. Everybody needs to be able to do the projects. So right. How do you get people cross-trained?
The first way is, it maybe sound cheeky, but we force them. For us, I'm really pro that our production floor is a bunch of developers, and as developers, we should be open to learning new things and trying new things, which means learning Drupal or learning WordPress, because that's what the solution of the day calls for. Maybe down the road it'll be something different, but we do kind of force that through them. Another way for us that we've kind of powered up shifting at more of a combined of Drupal and WordPress is that we've hired some talent. We've hired some great senior WordPress developers, both in-house and contractors, to help flesh out our floor and push the adoption and help through that training process. Kind of earlier, we talked about how we're pushing the company to learn about the problems before just throwing solutions at the wall. And again, for us, this again gets us opening more conversations, as the two platforms are very different. And as our floor has been learning about them, I've been finding that the questions have been different and kind of, I would say, better, being asked about what the project actually needs, instead of just going, here's what we can do in Drupal, or here's what we can do in WordPress. When you've got at least those two to come from, you approach your solutions differently.
Yeah, awesome. And let's take it a little bit further. So, you're working with the team, some pushback comes back, but you've sort of figured out some ways to answer that effectively. You've kind of already hinted at that. Yeah.
For our internal team, when we've tried to take our Drupal developers and get them into WordPress, it's I think you could probably see the claw marks as we drag them across the floor back to their stations. And it kind of goes right back into what I talked about earlier, the differences between the two platforms. They're very used to being able to do everything by hand and having the powers of views and all these other things. And it takes a little bit just to kind of break down that wall to go, okay, it's all right that we do it like this in WordPress. It's not Drupal. And kind of getting them through that is more of a kind of that leadership role that we take on here, is just to go, it's all right. It's okay to be frustrated, but we're going to get through this. And then on the flip side, our WordPress guys, it's been actually, I want to say, I'm going to knock on wood, but it's been a breeze bringing them into Drupal land for the exact opposite reasons. They get to enjoy the power of views and all these other things, and just the kind of the separation of all the different layers, and they've really enjoyed it. We've found that our WordPress guys, when there's that famous Drupal cliff picture that shows people falling off, our WordPress guys don't fall off. They've been getting up and going onto the top, and they're going through the learning process faster than somebody that knows neither of the platforms. It's been actually kind of incredible. And for us, if we were looking to bring more Drupal people up, we'd probably go get some more WordPress developers and train them in a shorter period of time to get moving.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and now there's going to be some gray zone between the two, obviously. Again, like we've already kind of hinted at that as well. Talk a little bit about how you handle that and some thoughts there.
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing that you need to realize is that when you get into kind of that gray zone where you're going to be able to, you could use Drupal or you could use WordPress to solve this, and it'd be pretty close to the same end result. Is that just because you've got that same site, it's not the same amount of investment for each platform. You're still dealing with a different amount of work that needs to get done for them all. So that's really kind of a crucial thing for us. For us, when we're looking at where is that gray zone, we're talking about like real simple shopping sites. Both of them, you can get them spun up to do that. Heavy content sites with a mid-range amount of content types. Again, both the platforms sit really nicely in that mix where it's not, not a crazy amount of content type. It might be a large amount of content. There's some great, huge media sites out there that are run by WordPress with a ton of content. So the platform can handle it. It's just when we start to see it kind of diverging to different kinds of content being mixed throughout, is where we'd push away. But I think that's another great gray zone. Again, when we're looking at budgeting, and we can sit there and go, wow, this is an amazing budget for a WordPress site, or oh, this is a really low budget for a Drupal site. There's still kind of that Venn diagram where there's that crossover that that can still hit that sweet spot.
Cool. All right. Well, let's just talk a little bit about you. I happen to know that you use and favor Pantheon in the process of deploying these things. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the benefits of doing so?
Sure. We've been Pantheon, to sing praises to Pantheon. We've been partners of theirs for years now. The production floor loves using Pantheon. It just makes our life a whole lot easier to get our projects up and running and to not have to worry about that hosting component. And when you guys brought WordPress into the workflow, it was a no-brainer for us to start moving our WordPress clients over to it. We get to, the shared best practices. I love being able to add new team members on without it taking weeks to get everybody's, authentication up and running through multiple different layers. It just works out of the box. On top of it, the scalability and the security are big things that when we need to amp projects up, we can. We're just a phone call or a button click away to be able to do that. And as well, with the security side, both platforms have had a lot of kind of scarier things going on lately. And knowing that Pantheon's hardening their shell on the outside, so that stuff doesn't even get into our sites or is, hampered a lot less, just gives us that reliability that, makes it such an easy thing to get people onto.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the same things, but awesome. Well, I think that brings us through to the point where we want to take some questions. So thanks, everyone, for hanging with us to this point. Please go ahead and ask your questions and put them in the question box. And as they start coming in, we will start taking them. Atusa.
Alrighty, we're going to launch into this. And Jean and Drew, feel free to both answer, disagree with each other, agree with each other, and audience, feel free to ask whatever you'd like. Our first question, Drew, I do think is directed more towards you, and that is Pantheon working towards being HIPAA compliant at any point? We're forced to use Acquia right now for clients who require that, and we'd love to use Pantheon as we already use Pantheon for all WordPress clients.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for using Pantheon. HIPAA compliance, I'll be quite honest. I don't know where that fits into our roadmap. One of the things that any platform needs to do is be conscious about having a roadmap and prioritizing things, and I honestly don't know where that is. I know that we have, so HIPAA, just to say what that is, that's the Health Insurance Privacy and Protection Act, which affects folks who are doing, for example, medical records kind of work. And so if you're working with a hospital and connecting to patient data, this becomes a real concern. And I think that's a justifiable, this is a good bit of legislation that says people's private information needs to be kept private in a very strict set of regulations. At the moment, Pantheon is not currently HIPAA compliant. Something we talked about. I'm not the person who makes that decision, and I don't really know where that is. If you'd like, if we've got that person's email address, that's definitely something that we can we can follow up on. And so if you share your email address, we can get you a better answer than that.
Alrighty. Our next question is: you keep referencing that larger clients led to Drupal. Why do you think Drupal is a better fit for large clients than WordPress? Jean, I think this one is for you.
Sorry, can you say that question again?
Of course. now that you know that for you. let me repeat for the audience as well. It says, you keep referencing that larger clients led to Drupal. Why do you think Drupal is a better fit for large clients than WordPress?
That's a great question. I think my answer today is going to be different than it was 6 years ago when we started moving down that path. For us, when we talk about larger clients, we're talking about the complexity of the problems and the things that they need to have resolved. And again, that be it workflows or integration with other APIs and all that stuff. For us, that's when we talk about large, we're talking about how many moving pieces are going on, not just like the content size or the budget size and things like that. So that's why today we would be going, hey, that sounds like a WordPress potential solution for us. I hope that answers that question.
I think it does. Our next one is, please explain the why of choosing Drupal and or WordPress. Why did you have to say no?
So why did we choose to use use them?
I think this. So I think this is about. And Gene, you and I have talked enough. I'll take a stab at this, and then you flesh it out. So, as you were sort of expressing this journey that started many years ago of moving from WordPress to Drupal, along the way you had clients that came back to you and said, "Hey, remember last year you did this really awesome, great thing. We now have this, an event coming up in 3 weeks, and you're our favorite people, and I'm sorry we didn't talk to you sooner, but we'd really like to put together like an event site with registrations or something like that." Yeah. And you felt like you had to say no to that because you didn't have the bandwidth and or maybe, I don't remember which budget or timelines or availability or whatever, but it just wasn't readily available and doable within Drupal. Whereas if you had WordPress at the time, like, and if that was right in the wheelhouse, you could have turned around and said, "Yes, there's actually a really great finished solution. We can knock it together quickly. You just, here's the modular home that you're going to live within. A lot of choices,
right? Ready
to go, and off you'd be, and you would have kept that client even happier and have done even more work."
Yeah, I think you kind of answered that beautifully. That's totally true. But that's exactly it. Like for us, we got down a path that we became very Drupal focused, and we started giving back to the community by working with the DA and doing the jobs and everything else, and we kind of became known as just Drupal guys. And then as we kind of evolved and matured as a company, we started seeing having those exact things like Drew just said, and in those cases going, we're really tired of saying no to our amazing clients for simple things that we know there are solutions out there for. So we started. That's why we stopped saying no to WordPress and started bringing it in and started saying yes to solutions again and getting things done in a timely manner.
Alrighty. Next question is a long one, so listen closely. What happens when you deliver a modular home, but then the client wants to add more custom functionality? Can't that make WordPress a bad choice for a long-term relationship? Instead, you might use distributions in Drupal to provide a modular home that can later be customized.
I think you could get yourself in trouble that way, but for us, again, I'll knock on wood, we've been very lucky that when we choose the platforms we have, we also have the ability to do the custom work for both of them. Not saying that WordPress can't be customized, because it totally can, and sometimes we have to. But those are the choices that we go through to make sure that we're hitting that 90 to 95% of the solution with the right choice. And if we have to make some concessions along the way, which always do, scope always creeps in and it always goes up and it always changes. So we just have to be flexible and again ready to address with that. I don't think that there's always going to be the right distribution or the right WordPress theme combo out there. So you kind of got to just be confident in the choices that you make at the time and work through them.
Yeah, I want to just second. So that's a good answer. I'm going to just extend it a little bit and say that custom. These are both PHP, MySQL-based content management frameworks that are quite extensible, and there are amazing success stories of people doing some really cool things to make amazing experiences in both platforms. So they're both very customizable, and I don't know that you would have Drupal distribution versus a sort of a nice polished set of plugins and theme choice for WordPress. The amount of code difference you would have if someone came back later and said, "That's awesome, I love it. Now, build me a third story." Again, to sort of go back to that home building analogy. Drupal distributions are not always the easiest things to customize and extend as well. And the more opinionated they are, well, I don't know. Your mileage may vary with either. So I don't know that you'd necessarily see any benefits, one or the other there. I think, Gene, your closing comment of just be confident with the tools you choose is perhaps the more important point. Yeah, we could go further into that, but let's take the next question.
Alrighty. The next question is, there are a lot of hooks in WordPress. I'm confused how those are inferior to Drupal's. You can filter slash hook into basically every action slash well-developed plugin. Have you used these? Why do you feel Drupal's hooks are superior?
Great question. Figured something like a question would come along those lines. For us, I think it just comes to comfortability, and again, with Drupal and the extensiveness that we've worked with it. In the past, our experience has not been so good with the WordPress hooks. Now that again, that's just our experience. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but that's for us what we've found.
Yeah, and all that. So I've heard this kind of. So it's a good question, definitely, and it's something that I hear other agencies kind of talking about and thinking about and asking each other about as well. And it is true. Very, and to just be really clear, like we're talking, in short format about two big, large ecosystems that have a lot of complexity to them, and so generalizations are necessary at this level. WordPress is absolutely extensible and has lots of different abilities to sort of hook in and change actions. Drupal, I would say, is more so and more. It's got more of it, so if WordPress on a scale of 1 to 10 has, or on a scale of 1 to 2 has 1.3, Drupal has 1.5 maybe. And again, I'm completely making up those numbers, but that's the kind of feedback I hear from others who are working with both on a regular basis. And I think anything more than that, sort of like we devolve into potential religious warfare. So I'll leave it alone at that.
Alrighty, just a note to the audience, we do have, I believe, the most questions we've ever had during a webinar, so we won't be able to address everything, but we will definitely have a follow-up to this, and we'll make sure we answer your most asked questions, but we will definitely fit another few in while we have this time. The next one, Drew, this one's actually, Drew or Gene, you can both take a different perspective on this, and that is, how does Pantheon fit into this?
Sure. So I'll take a stab. I'll do it quickly, and then Gene, if you want to add. So Pantheon is a platform for teams that wish to build awesome websites in either Drupal or WordPress. And then we also have this fantastic elastic hosting that fits into all of it. So as an agency, if you wish to quickly build Drupal or WordPress websites and spin them up and add team members and have secure, infrastructure and best practices workflows and all those things, Pantheon is just an awesome choice. And we do that for both WordPress and Drupal. And then once you have built this fantastic site quickly and efficiently, it needs a place to live. And you can use all of Pantheon's tools for free. It is our sort of bet that if you use Pantheon, you will like Pantheon. And then if you like Pantheon, you will be willing to use it for the hosting aspect as well. And we have fantastic jargon compliant, just great. It's next generation hosting, actually. I mean, it's not. That's like its own whole webinar, and I won't go further into it. But it's better. It's done by software. It's not done by sysadmins. Sysadmins don't scale. You simply can't do. Many people in this industry find a hosting company. The hosting company is great, and then it gets bigger, and then it sucks. As I was running my own business, I saw that many, many times. Pantheon is built differently. It's all managed by software. When we need to roll out an update to the platform, we have 1 or 2 engineers, for example, patching like the Heartbleed vulnerability of last year. They spend an hour or 2, make sure they've got the solution right, hit commit, and it rolls across our entire platform. It is one single Pantheon. It's a single instance multi-tenant platform. And I'll stop at that because otherwise I'm going to go on for too long and questions are waiting.
Yeah, I think the way that Pantheon plays into it for us is, like I said earlier, it just makes our lives easier. For us, it's a bit of a, it makes our lives easier. And when we talk to our clients, they're not they just go okay when we say, okay, we're going to host it on Pantheon. They trust that we're the people that know the technology, and they accept that. It's not a hard sell for us at all, which makes it even better because it just takes all that issues of having to deal with, our own hardware or, a custom uh, hosting solution out of the question. We just get to focus on what we do best.
Right. Our next question is, since you mentioned the lack of views in WordPress, can you speak a bit about your experiences in writing queries? Disclaimer, I found the lack of many tables in WordPress make coding queries much easier than building queries in Drupal, but curious to see if that's a common experience.
Um, it's been a while since I've personally written any queries, but I've written many because I come back from I start developing long before there was a WordPress or Drupal out there. So writing queries was not a hard thing for me, and was something that we had to do by hand back in my day. Um, Aging myself a bit. So, when I did have to write them, I didn't find it difficult. I just didn't like not having views. Honestly, it was more of a preference thing than anything else for me back when I did it.
Yeah, and I would say, same disclaimer, it's been a little while since I've written a query by hand, although I probably asked sometime in the last couple months have actually done that. But the, um, it's true, WordPress's table structure is way more grokkable than Drupal's, because, oh my God, Drupal and tables. So that can make for in conceptually simpler queries. That being said, there's a lot of things that you want to do when you're really pushing to make a great site that you might want to have some more advanced queries. And queries are finicky things, So that's again, it's not rocket surgery, but it is it's nice not to have to do that, and it's also very nice, I think. Like a tool like Views gives you the ability to sort of tinker around with the results and give an interface to say, like, all right, I want to look at the most recent items except for the ones that have, but I also want to give a bump to those that are on sale or something like that. Like, you can do all of that very, very quickly, and that's a powerful thing.
All right, we're going to sneak a couple more questions in here before we have to sign off. The next one is, where in your organization does the ultimate responsibility lie for making the WordPress versus Drupal decision during project intake? Did you bring developers in the process of deciding?
Yeah, so for when we're doing like our biz ops or our sales quotes, the developers are involved in that. So we're talking, they're reviewing all the collateral that our sales guys and marketing guys are getting for us, and we're actually due on every one. Our teams, our developers do line by line quotes for everything. So we're getting in there making those decisions, and sometimes we get to that point that we're like, you know what, we're too early in this project to say one way or the other. So they'll make the decision as a group, and I guess I have final veto over that since I'm the CTO. But we get to say, hey, we want to go and dig deeper into this because we think both platforms could still be good. And if we come back with that decision, we're still going to tell our sales guys what we think the range of this could be, that kind of the best case and worst case scenario, and they can take that and go work their magic.
All right, sneaking a couple more in here. The next is, have you ever had an existing client convert from WordPress to Drupal or Drupal to WordPress, and what was that experience like?
We did not too long ago, and I can't remember which way it went. But we have had a couple that have come in that have had bad experiences on either one. And again, it's not so much the platform, but it's the people that they worked with potentially before that was more the bad experience, which tainted them to both of those platforms. But really, overall, the experience has been really good because for us, we're confident using both of them. And when a customer is very, very set going, I want this, be like, well, they're still the ones paying the bill, so we're we're going to build it on that platform if it's right. Now, we have taken customers off WordPress in the past due to having a lot of complexity into their systems. And, again, going back to those larger pieces where it's just like, it's not the right fit for you. And if that's the way that you want to do it, sadly, we're not going to be able to give you the best outcome with it. And for us, we feel better being able to kind of stake our claim in saying, we're going to use what's best for this problem today.
All right, we're going to take one more question. Drew, this is probably directed at you, and that is, my agency has its own hosting server. What would be the benefits and disadvantages of using Pantheon over our own housed hosting server?
Yeah, so advantage of keeping your house, like your in-house server is like you have it. The amount of work it requires you to change is zero, and that's a powerful that's a powerful number. Pantheon, if you're not familiar with it, you might think of Pantheon as a service. So we make DevOps workflows just wonderful, all kinds of great advanced hooks. We're constantly rolling out updates. It's getting better. When you've got your own server, it kind of falls on you to do all of those things. And so over time, those servers tend to be a little bit more dilapidated than you would like, and they kind of chew away at productivity and profitability in a way that's kind of insidious. I know when I ran my own firm, we likewise had numerous development servers that we we would use as our development environments, and then we would end up deploying out to a variety of clients. Sometimes their own internal infrastructure and all the normal stuff. And those development servers were a bit of a nightmare. Like they produced vulnerabilities. They just kind of we had to monitor resources, all this kind of stuff that we didn't want to do because we wanted to build websites. And consequently, because we didn't want to do it, we weren't very good at it. And those, again, it worked, but it was so-so. And I think I wish we had found Pantheon a lot sooner, because I would have switched, because so many had. And oftentimes there were things that I personally had to deal with too. It's like I was one of the more sysadmin-y people, and again, like I knew enough to play one on TV and possibly even in real life, but it wasn't my favorite thing to do. And yeah, I don't know, Gene, do you have any?
I think I 100% agree with everything you said there, Drew. Having your own in-house, it's taking away from what you're doing best. Unless setting up dev servers is what you do best, then great. But if it's not, I'm going to say get rid of it and switch to a system like Pantheon, which is going to have all the DevOps stuff. You learn Terminus and Quicksilver. There's so much amazing power that they put into this platform, and they're building it for us to deliver great solutions to our customers. It's going to save you a lot of headaches, and just for us, it just cuts down on the amount of other apps and stuff that we have to have running, and things that we have to be kind of aware of, and lets us just do, again, what we do best.
Yeah, like how many people's internal dev servers are inoculated against HTTP proxy, right? So, came out last week. Did you really want to drop everything you were doing to deal with that? Have you done it yet? If so, why not? Because you're busy. Oh, well, I don't know. That's just one tiny example.
Alrighty, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I know a lot of you didn't get answered. Rest assured, we are going to follow up both with the recording, the deck, and we will figure out a way to get some more questions answered to you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions that weren't answered or feedback, please visit our website where you'll find a Contact Us page, and we'll put you in touch with the best member of our team. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks for your time.